Hey guys, and welcome to episode 137 of the OCDStories.com podcast. Now in this episode I interviewed a very, very, very good friend of mine called Elliot, and Elliot helped me out on the OCD Camp. And I wanted to get Elliot on, because he's a wonderful human being and he's helped me so much over the years and he truly is a great friend. And I wanted to share his energy with you because I think he's just awesome. But I also wanted to get him on because I wanted you guys to hear what someone thinks about people with OCD after they've spent time with them and truly understood what's going on in their minds. So, I asked Elliot kind of what were his perceptions about OCD before the camp versus after the camp, what he wants the world to know about people with OCD, just his kind of words of, I guess, hope, wisdom and advice for people struggling. We discussed generally mental health because he himself has his own battles with mental health, non-OCD related. So we get into that a bit, the similarities and the differences. I hope it just kind of, with this episode, can educate people who don't have OCD, maybe a bit on what it is, coming from someone who doesn't have OCD, my friend Elliot. But also, I think just the way Elliot approached this episode, you really like what he has to say, and hopefully his words will give you hope, as his words often do for me. So without further ado, here is Elliot. Welcome to the show, Elliot.
Thanks, Stuart.
It's good to have you on. This is my first in-person recording with this equipment. Before I did it crudely with my iPhone when I was in the States in San Fran last year. But it's good to have you on. Obviously, I know you very well. And Too well. And you kindly helped me out with the OCD camp.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for that. And I know, everyone that was on the camp appreciated your input and your energy, and your guitar playing. But how was your experience of the camp?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I think the overriding sensations that I came away with were that, number one, it's amazing how close you can get to a group of people as individuals and as a group just over the course of a short space of time, and how positive the impact is of that on not just your own kind of sense of connection with others and understanding of others, but also the sense of kind of mutual support and mutual engagement. So I just found that fascinating, actually, just hearing other people's stories, sharing my own. And I mean, I came along to help. Am I too quiet?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'll hold it closer. Probably edit that bit out.
No, that's fine. I'll leave it in. Keep going.
Yeah, now people think I'm weird. Anyway, I think the main thing is I came along basically to support you and to help you out. And that was my expectation. I was going there to try and just help out in whatever way I could, just practically putting tents up or whatever. But actually, I felt like I'd been on my own journey that weekend, and I came away feeling so blessed that I'd had the opportunity to share with these people, and kind of I felt built up by the whole experience.
Yeah.
I felt encouraged in my own kind of journey with mental health, and I felt like I had a better understanding of myself, and I was better equipped to manage my own struggles.
Excellent. Well, no, I'm glad you got stuff out of it, because it makes me feel less guilty about not paying you. But yeah, what did you learn about OCD?
I think the main thing I learned about OCD, which I suppose it sounds really obvious to say, but I think people don't realise, is just how different it is for every single person. Mental health is a completely unique experience for every individual. Like, we have millions of neurons and neural pathways, and no two people are the same. And it's so, mental health is so formed by our experiences with growing up and all that sort of thing. So for me, it was just a realisation of every person's experience of OCD is equally different and equally valid. And whilst we share common themes, it's completely unique to the individual, and that's a real challenge for each and every person.
Yeah,
I think the main thing I took away about those who suffer with OCD is just the sheer bravery of having to face those things and try and maintain everyday life. It can just be crippling. I know from my own experience. I mean, I've suffered with depression on and off for 15 years, and cyclothymia, which is like a mild form of bipolar. And I know for me, the struggles to maintain everyday life and to kind of manage my own mental health, but to hear it from others' perspectives as well. It's I was just overwhelmed by a sense of the bravery and the courage of the people that were there.
Yeah, I can second that. I'm getting a bit teary hearing you say that, because
really,
it was definitely, seeing that bravery in others was unbelievably touching.
And that's a window into their lives that you would never get in everyday life.
No.
And I think that was I felt so blessed to be part of that experience, because these were people I'd never met before, and yet within 24, 48 hours, I was getting a window into their soul in areas that probably some of their own friends and family or work colleagues never ever see or hear about, and are just totally unaware of what's going on under the surface mentally and emotionally, and the daily battle against these intrusive thoughts, these compulsions and habits that they have to war against on a daily basis. So in my kind of mind, these people that suffer with OCD are real heroes, because you've got a daily battle on your hands just to keep going, basically.
You can obviously relate to that.
With depression, it's a similar thing, but it's I think it's a different animal in many ways. But I mean, everyone's experience is different. But I mean, part of me, no, this sounds really stupid. Well, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But part of me found myself thinking, well, crikey, I know I've had a shit time with depression, but at least I didn't have to cope with some of the stuff that these guys are talking about, the thoughts that come into their head and stuff like that, and the things they have to do physically to just maintain an everyday life. It's a strange part of me felt lucky in some sense that I've had severe difficulties with depression, but some of the elements of it haven't been.
No, I get what you're saying.
I
think that's a common thing for anyone struggling, is to compare suffering and think, oh, well, I'm glad it's not that, or even if I had that, it would be easier.
Yeah.
But I've spoken to people who, because depression is very common alongside OCD.
Yeah.
And some people get depression real bad, and for those that sometimes they say that people have said who have just tasted a bit of depression are like, just the taste I had of it made me realise I'd never want to go to the depths of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's that. So what you're saying, people with OCD can have said the same about depression.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's the grass is greener or the grass is browner on the other side, depending on your viewpoint.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important, and it's good that what you've said, whether it's valid or not, is shows that you saw the impact that OCD has on someone.
Yeah, and I think that's always my main bugbear about OCD. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and we've had, you've shared a bit of your journey with me. And back when years back when you first started talking to me about it, I kind of found myself realising, A, that I was guilty of this myself, but B, how much other people did it. If at work somebody was lining their pens up on a desk, someone would go, "Oh, that's a bit OCD," and it suddenly hit me, and I was like, "What are you talking about? You blinking blinker?"
You can swear, it's fine.
Well, no.
Too late now. The moment's gone.
Yeah. No. But it's and
you hear it all the time, right, in office situations.
Yeah, and it's just. So I think it's the most misunderstood condition. And I think it's one of the most untalked about conditions as well. I mean, I know mental health isn't talked about enough, and it's getting better, but depression is the one that everyone kind of gets and is the easiest one to talk about in some ways. But the intrusive thoughts, in the sort of more extreme parts of OCD, if you want to call it that, about child abuse and death and all that, and harm and all these sort of things, you can totally understand why people don't want to talk about it, because it's so hard to face the reality of having those thoughts. So now when people say, oh, so-and-so's a bit OCD, I'm seething inside. I'm like, no, you've got no idea what this monster is that you're joking about, or that you're talking about using Post-it notes and highlighting things, which I love, by the way. I love highlighting things, but I haven't got OCD. I just like highlighting things.
Just anal.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I just like things lined up neatly. It doesn't mean I've got OCD. It just means I like things neat. It's just it really bothers me now, and more so since having the depth of relationship and knowledge of these people that I did over that camp. Yeah.
No, that's good to hear, and maybe that's how we spread better awareness of OCD, is bring random population onto the camp and
exactly,
get them to see firsthand.
Yeah.
But I mean, you flagged something there about, when I first opened up a bit about my story, and I never went into detail, but I remember that, and I think we were walking to the basketball court at the college, and the only reason I mentioned that was because you opened up for me in that moment about what you were going through.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't actually remember that. Was that
I remember
back in
it clearly. And it was in Chichester. And it was, just you kind of, I can't remember why you just opened up about it. And the way you opened up about it just gave me instant permission to go, oh, yeah, well, I deal with this too.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think there's a nice message in there, is I didn't necessarily have the courage or whatever word we want to use to share at that time. So your I don't know if we'd say freedom, liberation, whatever.
Probably just openness,
honesty empowered me to set myself free a bit. So I think, there's a good message in there. Sometimes when we do open up, we inspire others to do the same.
I think that's massively it. And part of me, I think, is saying about, having the courage to share. I think it's less about courage and more about opportunity, because I just don't think people are. I think empathy is something we need so much more of in this world. A willingness to step into somebody else's moccasins, a willingness to try and see through their goggles and live life through, and think, oh, what is it like for them? Yeah. And that's the best way to resolve conflict, is empathy, in my view. Because when you begin to understand somebody else's position and just put your own opinions and your own needs on hold for a moment, things become a lot less combative and a lot less, and you find that common ground. So I think actually there's a greater need in life and in relationships for that openness of communication, that honesty, and that ability to when somebody asks you in the street how you're doing, it's not just, oh yeah, fine, how are you? Yeah, oh yeah, we've got to dash off. Like it's almost a human skill, a life skill, an emotional skill to be able to say to someone, how are you doing? Like, really, how are you doing? And then just listen and give them the opportunity to say, and B, to be willing to say, actually, you know what, I'm not doing great today, and sit with the uncomfortability of that, if that's a word. It's probably not. Sit with the slight awkwardness or whatever, but just know that that's more authentic and that's more real. Yeah,
I absolutely agree, and that's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I haven't got there yet, but I think partly the why I don't say, oh, today I'm actually not doing so great, is because part of me feels that if as soon as I say that, the other person's going to feel guilty and want to have to try and help me or save me or whatever. When in reality, it's like, I'm not doing that great today, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's normal to not do great sometimes.
Yeah. And
no one needs to be saved some people do, but not always. Mostly in those moments, they just need to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And I think owning it, as you said, is part of the healing. Because, when you say, oh, I'm fine, it makes you feel shit. Actually, I'm not fine in your head is the second dialogue that's going on.
Yeah. And also, how do we know that other person isn't feeling rotten too, and just putting a brave face on it? Yeah. And then suddenly we say, oh, we're not okay. And they're like, oh, phew. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I don't have to fake it.
The only one, yeah.
Yeah. And also as well, that's the thing, is so often we try and take responsibility for other people's emotions or other people's feelings. And I think that's kind of part of being British in some ways. We're sort of a bit socially awkward, and we're always thinking about manners and politeness and, not wanting to say or do the wrong thing. But actually, if us sharing makes somebody else feel like they need to, I don't know, look after us or rescue us or save us or whatever, that like we're not sharing it to create that, and that their emotional response to us isn't our responsibility. And actually, I think sometimes that's what cripples us is a fear of judgment about what other people might think about us, but also fear of making somebody else feel uncomfortable or feel whatever. Whereas actually we know that in life, growth happens outside of comfort zones. As that little sticker you gave me for my laptop for my birthday says so clearly, for that person, it might make them feel awkward for a moment, but who knows, it might cause them to reevaluate something in their own mind and heart that day that might cause them to grow exponentially as an individual.
It's true.
We just don't know. And I think we almost we stunt these opportunities for growth before they happen, because we don't want to open a can of worms or make the other person feel awkward, or
we don't want to be uncomfortable.
That's what it boils down to is comfort zones, isn't it? So
okay, no, really good point. And you build muscle through breaking muscle, right?
Exactly. It's a principle in life. Things have to be damaged or broken down or challenged or before they can be rebuilt and regrown and reformed.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay, so you've loosely answered this question, but just see if you've got any add-ons to this. Is kind of your view of OCD before the camp versus after.
I think my view of it before, I wouldn't say my view of it changed. I would say my understanding of it changed. Okay. My view of it before and after was OCD is a damaging mental illness that people don't choose and do their best to manage or escape from or deal with or cope with. And it's different for every person. And as I say, from my own journey, I know how crippling mental ill health can be. So that view remains the same, but my understanding of it, I would say, has grown and has deepened, and has helped me in my own journey actually as well. And just putting faces and people to this illness of the people that I met has been just an incredibly life-giving thing, actually. So I would say, my understanding's changed, and I would say I'm more determined to, as we talked about earlier, when someone goes, oh, you're lining your pens up, you're a bit OCD, to be like, no, you bellend, listen, that's not what OCD's about. Have you got any American listeners?
Like 68%.
So they're not going to know what a bellend is.
No, and don't describe what it is.
Okay.
Google that if you want to know more.
What's an American sort of version? Jackass, something like that. Anyway, whatever.
Douchebag.
Sorry about that, American listeners.
We have Canadians, Australians, Swedish, you name it, we got it.
Flipping Nora.
Good, yeah.
Global.
So hello to all of them.
Yeah, worldwide. So I completely lost my train of thought. So I'm definitely more motivated to, to correct people, not in a harmful way, but just to be like, I know you're joking, mate, but do you have any idea what OCD really is? And to be able to have these people in the back of my mind when I'm talking about it that I met on the camp and that shared so openly and with me. And so for me, it's, and that support network, I think, is so crucial for mental health and for OCD. Knowing people that have shared that experience with you, even though it's completely different from yours, and just gives you courage and strength to continue in your own way.
Absolutely. And so I guess, what would you want people to know, like in a short sentence, about people who have OCD? About them?
I think I'd want them to know that I think I'd want them to know how brave they are, basically. and how courageous they are. And I think self-love and self-affirmation are the hardest things to give yourself. And in mental health wears you down and wears your opinion of yourself down and wears down your ability to think well of yourself. And I think that's the same with OCD. And actually, and I said this to people on the camp on the last night, you know, if you're suffering with OCD, I want you to know how brave and how courageous and how strong you are, even in your vulnerability, even in your weakness. You are incredible, and I'm not saying that in a like cheesy way or whatever. I mean that, and I mean that because I've met the people, and I've seen the impact on their lives, and so I think that's the one thing that I would want to say about people with OCD. Is how brave they are, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Okay, so we've established on this episode, and everyone listening is fully aware of this, that OCD is misunderstood. So from your point of view, other than correcting people, which is a good way, and correcting them in a compassionate, nice way, because everyone's ignorant to something, and sometimes they don't mean it. You know, they just. I always put that because I know that when people hear it, they can be very emotional about it, and rightly so. But obviously, the people saying it aren't usually, hopefully, trying to be dicks about it. They're just not thinking, or they don't know better. So, how can people with OCD and clinicians better represent the disorder and start to chip away at its negative image in the media? Or its misunderstood image?
Yeah, I think so. People with OCD and clinicians.
Yeah, or I guess anyone who's willing to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is just starting to burst that bubble. I think the main problem with the perception of OCD and the misunderstanding of it is that fundamentally people think it's about lining up pens and, you know, not touching a bowl that's dirty or whatever, you know, stuff like that. And it's and you can challenge it in jokey ways, you know, but it's actually beginning to burst that bubble and beginning to hopefully get it taken a bit more seriously. And I think with any condition that's misunderstood or that's not talked about, unfortunately, the only way to change that is to help people understand and to talk about it. And that's the hardest part, and that's where that courage and that bravery that people that battle these thoughts and these compulsions every day need to rise up and use that as fuel for the flames to actually to talk about it and to help people understand and to say, you know, do you know what? This is my story and these are my struggles. And I think the more people do that, I know you're interviewing people at the Edinburgh Fringe who are doing sketches about OCD and things like that.
Yeah.
Things like that are great ways of doing it, because people, when humour's involved, people much more easily open up. And so that's a great way of doing it, through humour and through shows and plays and maybe a stand-up comedian who has OCD, you know, and then maybe media articles and interviews on panel shows and things like that. You need those key figures that have profile, that have a voice, to stand up and be counted and to shout about it. And on a day-to-day level, you need the people like me and you who suffer with mental health. We need to just be honest with people, even if it does make them feel uncomfortable or change their opinion of us, even if we are scared of what the implications might be. Yeah. We need to be honest, and we need to share our own story and our own struggles. And that creates positive ripples of empathy and openness and honesty, positive ripples of people sharing life with others, and positive ripples of people realising that they don't have to fake it, and that life isn't all Instagram and golden glitter and highlight reels, and, you know, there's so much fakeness in this world, isn't there? There's so much sheen and veneer on everything, and actually that's not what life's about, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's great. Okay, so how do you manage your own mental health, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind you asking at all. Probably My instinctive, my honest reaction would probably be not well enough, to be honest. I know I can always manage my mental health better, and I think managing mental health well is actually a very difficult thing to do, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of strength, and sometimes it's easier to just ignore it or just escape, whether that's having a few beers or whatever, or just watching TV or other things. It's sometimes easier to escape than to face these things. And even like age 32, I think I first started battling depression when I was maybe 12, 13. So we're talking about, blimey, 20 years. Where's that gone? But I still have those same temptations to escape things rather than face them.
Yeah.
Even though I've faced them time and time again and had counselling and therapy and whatever else. But I think more and more I'm learning to realise that although I have to do this thing that's going to help my mental health now, whether that's getting up and going for a run even if I don't feel like it, or whether that's resisting the temptation to drink and eating healthier food, although in that moment I might not want to do that because it doesn't seem as fun or as easy.
Yeah.
I know that the next day I'm going to feel more well and more whole as a person. I think for me, I mean, I'm a Christian, so for me, prayer is a huge thing for me in terms of managing my mental health and spending time reading the Bible and praying and stuff. And for me, the line between prayer and meditation or mindfulness or whatever you want to call it is a fairly blurry line. So I guess a lot of that involves kind of deep breathing and being present and being quiet and just allowing my kind of thoughts to do their thing. And I have various little strategies that are probably similar to other people's that just have my own personal nuances, I guess. Yeah.
Great. No, thank you for that. I was asked those types of questions because everyone has a different approach, and I think we can learn a lot from various people. Okay, so what if you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self? What would you tell that young man who still had a full head of hair?
Yeah, cheers for that. I'd say don't stress out so much because that's how you lose your hair, you muppet.
Yeah.
No, it's probably genetics or something. Thank goodness this is audio and not video.
So I'll take a picture.
Oh, cheers, mate. I think, what would I tell my 20-year-old self? Don't worry so much. Like, stuff always works out in the end, What's the worst that could happen? Just don't sweat the small stuff as much, and be kind to yourself. I spent so much time beating myself up and trying to tell myself I should be better and I haven't done this or I haven't achieved that. Be kind to yourself and don't worry would be the two things I would say to a younger version of myself.
Excellent. No, I love it. And is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you wish you could have shared today?
Well, I could talk about Jesus and how he's transformed my life, but I'm guessing you're going to shut that one down, right?
Not that I have anything against Jesus.
No, I know, but that's not what this show's about.
This isn't a religious one.
Yeah, I know.
Unless it helps people.
No, I mean, that's it. Yeah, I'm only pulling your leg. Will the American people get that? Do they understand pulling your leg?
Yanking your chain.
Oh, okay.
Winding you up.
Yeah.
Those.
Pull the other one, mate. Pull the other leg.
No, that's English.
No, right, okay. I think I'd be happy to share more of my story, but maybe that's for another time because I know it's my story's not specifically about OCD, but as I said on the camp, I think mental health is, as I said, it's such a unique thing to every person, but it also shares common themes which we can share and learn from one another about. But yeah, so I don't think there's anything else particularly that I'd want to say other than, if you're going through hell, keep going. And, if you are suffering with OCD, I may not have ever met you and I may never meet you, but, I think you're brave. I think you've got courage to face these thoughts and these compulsions. And I hope and pray that you can find well-being and find peace and continue to show that strength and that courage every step along the way, day by day. Just take it one step at a time. Be kind to yourself, and don't worry, be happy.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing and coming on.
No worries. Was I serious enough?
Yeah, just about. I'm joking. Right, signing off from Edinburgh.
Bye.
So there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed my chat with Elliot, and it gave you some comfort in the way people see OCD once they truly understand what it is, and hopefully some ideas on how we can chip away at the misperception, incorrect idea of OCD that is currently out there in the media. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is not therapy, it's not replacement therapy. Please seek treatment from a trained professional. And if you want to check out the OCD Camp, it's theocdcamp.com, and obviously show notes, etc. for this episode will be on theocdstories.com. As always, thank you so much for the support. I deeply appreciate you. Take care.